I want to thank, actually, there's so many people to thank tonight, which is really a great position to be in. But a few people first, just to start off. Of course, Film Forum for hosting us tonight. And Murray's Cheese for providing us with the wonderful cheese. And of course, Murray's and Rob and Nina are not only supporters of tonight's event, of so many wonderful causes in the neighborhood. They live in the neighborhood, they have a business in the neighborhood, they're really everything that this neighborhood is about and that we work towards, so I really want to thank them so much for their support. And of course the wonderful GVSHP staff for putting this event together tonight. And everything that we do, of course, which would not be possible without them. They work incredibly hard and are a really talented and dedicated group of people. I'm sure, though I have a long list of people to thank, the most important thing to say is everybody who did anything to help make this incredible victory happen deserves a thank you. And that means sending an email, writing a letter, coming to a hearing, passing along an email, sharing something on social media, turning out for a rally or demonstration, reaching out to your elected official or the mayor or whoever else to let them know that you wanted to see this happen. I know it's very easy to feel discouraged and to feel as though it doesn't make a difference, and there's probably a lot of good reasons to feel that way right now. But this is a really great example of how it does make a difference. And I know I'm not alone in saying I was not sure we would ever get to this point. And we got here with not only a landmark district designated this morning, to which there was a tremendous amount of resistance from many, many different quarters, from the Real Estate Board of New York, from some quarters in the administration, from some powerful property owners, etc. But we got there. And prior to that, of course, this is just the final phase of what has been a more than 10-year effort. 2 historic districts. The first one, Phase 1, the Greenwich Village Historic District Extension Part 2, as it was called at the time, for the area between 6th and 7th Avenues, between 4th Street and Houston Street. That was 235 buildings, a dozen blocks. And then in 2013, the South Village Historic District, as it's called, 250 buildings between Washington Square and Houston, LaGuardia and 6th Avenue, covering about 14 blocks, which, by the way, included 3 NYU buildings that were not originally in the district, that we had to fight to get put into the district, that included the Vanderbilt Hall Law School, which covers a full city block, which under the existing zoning, the university could tear down and build a 300-foot tall tower on that site. And I have no doubt that one day that would have happened. I mean, we know how NYU works. It really was just a matter of time. But because of that landmark designation, because of the landmark designation today, that includes, St. Anthony's Church and all of the connected buildings, this incredible array of early 19th century houses and late 19th century and early 20th century tenements and housing, and these beautiful storefronts that in many cases are unchanged over the last 100 or more years. We're going to be able to hold on to those. And as we all know, given the way things are moving in our city, and particularly in our part of town, without things like landmark designation, there's no way that that would happen. It would absolutely be lost. But to come back to the point I was trying to make before, that didn't happen by accident. It didn't happen easily. It happened because literally hundreds and hundreds of people worked really hard, participated in the ways I described before, came to hearings, stood up and said, I'm a property owner, I'm a merchant, I'm a longtime resident, and I want this. I need this. They let our elected officials know, they let the community board know, they let the city know. Now, fortunately, we were in a situation where we had a really, really friendly partner with both the community board and our local council member, which makes a huge difference. A huge difference. And I'm going to get into a little bit later exactly how huge of a difference they made. But let me just say this, you know, in each of those cases, whether it's the community board or the city council, there's a lot of things that they have to pay attention to and they have to juggle. And even the most sympathetic community board and city council member needs to hear from you so that they know this is really, really important, because anything that they do like this, they're going to piss some people off by doing it. So it's important that they know that there's a lot more people that they're going to make happy by doing it. And I think we've done a great job of letting them know that there's a lot of people who have been made very, very happy by this designation today. I want to thank some people who really did an incredible amount to make what happened today possible. And I'm just going to kind of randomly go through a list of some folks. Who are here. Frida Bradlow, where's Frida? Yes. One of the longtime property owners in the neighborhood who I can remember 15 years ago talking to about this. She was a member of the advisory board for this effort, incredibly important. Ann Arlen, also a longtime resident, participant in the advisory board, co-op owner, came out and showed her support for this. Terry Cude, who's the new chair of the community board, who came down to the Landmarks Preservation Commission to testify in favor, even though somebody else was already doing it. She wanted to make sure that they knew that the new leadership was going to continue to be as supportive as the old leadership, and that's great. Judith Calais, who really has been at everything, who helped us get the Bleecker Area Merchants and Residents Association on board, who has been so passionate about this, our eyes on the street. She's been at the rallies, she's spoken at the press conferences. Really, I cannot understate how helpful she's been. Dick Blodgett from the Charlton Street Block Association, who is now a member of the GVSHP Board of Trustees, but who also, from the beginning, organizing, turning people out, doing an incredible amount for this. Jonathan Jabal, I don't know if Jonathan is still here. He's also been involved with this from the beginning, with the Houston Street Block Association. Anita Isola, I don't know if Anita is here yet. Great. And let me just say, and this applies to many people, not just Anita, but one of the things that is so wonderful about Anita's involvement and many other people's involvement is there's this wonderful element of personal passion connected to family history, connected to deep generational roots in the neighborhood. And that's one of the things that's been so wonderful about this effort is it's a history that's rooted in the immigrant experience, which I think now more than ever we want to celebrate and emphasize how important it is. And for people, in so many cases, it's about how their families struggled and succeeded and became Americans through this neighborhood and everything that it provided. And I find that particularly touching. I obviously love historic preservation and architecture and history. There's something about that I have to say I find particularly moving, and I feel privileged to have been able to work with people on helping to get that, get the recognition and due that it deserves. Sean Sweeney from the Soho Alliance. Sean's been a great supporter of this from the very beginning, and the Soho Alliance is, of course, a really important player in terms of what happens in our neighborhood and downtown. There are many representatives of the Longo family here, and for those of you who know Puerto Rico, on Bleecker Street and in a couple of other locations, you know, that is a family-owned business that also goes back generations, that really is such an important part of what makes this neighborhood so wonderful, why we love it, why it's worth preserving, why it's worth fighting for, and so I really appreciate their participation. There are so many people to thank. I'm gonna, as the evening goes on, come back and mention a few other people. I wanna just say a couple of things before I hand the microphone over to some very special guests who've joined us for the evening. As those of you who've been through this before know, this is a wonderful victory, but it's not the end of the story. It's not even the end of the story for the Sullivan Thompson Historic District. We've now got it designated, we've now got it landmarked. That doesn't mean it's preserved in amber. That doesn't mean we can now just assume everything's good and there's nothing that we have to worry about. Now a new chapter in our work begins. It's going to be regulated by the Landmarks Preservation Commission. Sometimes they do a great job of regulating things. Sometimes we disagree with the way they do it. It's going to require all of us keeping a really close, watchful eye, turning out to those hearings when people apply to make changes to those buildings, in some cases to demolish and build anew, which is in certain cases acceptable within historic districts. In other cases, we need to push back and say no, that's not what this designation was for. So we're entering a new phase of the fight to preserve this neighborhood, but it's a much better phase to be in. It's much better than the phase we were in before, when we had almost nothing to really help us and protect us against the neighborhood. And of course, we have a lot of other work to do in many, many other parts of the neighborhood. As a lot of you know, we've got some really important work that we need to do on University Place and Broadway, where we have neither landmark protections nor good zoning. There's a lot of the East Village that we are fighting to get landmarked. And even in the West Village, which mostly is landmarked, and within the Greenwich Village Historic District, within the Historic District, we've got to work hard to make sure that the Landmarks Preservation Commission does the right thing. And along our waterfront, we've got to make sure that where it's not landmarked, that we protect it from inappropriate development. And we are very much on the precipice of a really important victory there as well, in terms of a regulatory system that's going to make sure that our neighborhood does not get overwhelmed with air rights from the Hudson River Park, which in a very similar way to this effort, and they're actually very much connected, people had to work really, really hard to get us there. And there as well, we had a wonderful partner and advocate and champion in City Councilmember Corey Johnson, who's helped make both of these things happen. I'm going to actually right now ask Corey to come up here and to say thank you to him for all of his great work on this, and ask him to say a few words.
You did it. You did it. We all did it together. It was a team effort. And as Andrew said, I am just really proud to be here tonight. Before I was actually sworn in January of 2014, Andrew and I started having conversations, even before I took office, about the future Pier 40 deal, the St. John's building, the air rights coming off the Hudson River Park, and how the South Village was connected to all of that. And so to actually get to today feels like a big win. And we're not here today because I did it all or because Andrew did it all. We did some good stuff. We're here today because you all helped us get here. This was a grassroots, decade-long community effort, and the leadership, as is often the case, comes from the bottom up, not from the top down. And so tonight is your win, and I am so grateful that we're here tonight. I want to acknowledge that Terry Cood, who's the chair of Community Board 2, is here, and I thank her for her help. And the former chair of Community Board 2, Tobi Bergman, who was instrumental in helping make this happen, is here as well. I also want to recognize, and you all know this already, but this wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for the relentless, tireless advocacy of Andrew Berman and GVSHP. He deserves a big round of applause. So he deserves a standing ovation, actually. Stand up. It's a big win. So I'm not gonna speak for too long, but Jane Jacobs wrote that cities need old buildings so badly, it's probably impossible for vigorous streets and districts to grow without them. And there's a lot of reasons why that is the case. Yes, preserving our historic streetscapes and architecture connects us to the past in profound ways, but it's also one of the most important measures that give our city its character, its spirit, its soul in some ways. And these are the qualities that make New York City the greatest place to live and work, and it's what makes these great neighborhoods the greatest place to live and to work. And with so much changing around us, with losing countless small businesses, with overdevelopment happening everywhere you look, this feels like a nice win. It feels like for once the good guys came out on top. I'm sure Andrew said this before I walked in, but there are roughly, I believe just in the South Village, the whole area that GVSHP covers, 100 city blocks with over 1,200 buildings that are protected because of GVSHP's hard work and advocacy, and that is really, really, really amazing. And so I just want to end with this. You know, this wasn't easy. Before we got to the point a few months ago of realizing that it was possible, we were told, Andrew and I and my staff and the community board were told countless times over the last 3 years that it's not going to happen, we're not going to do it. I got letters written to me saying it's not being designated, stop it. And we continued to work together, even in the face of people telling us no, realizing that we could hopefully leverage something, which was the St. John's Pier 40 redevelopment. And I made that development moving forward contingent upon protecting the South Village. I said, I'm not going to support the Pier 40 deal unless you give us phase 3 of the South Village. And even then, it was still hard, and I really relied upon Andrew and his staff to provide literally binders of documents going building by building, block by block, when we had to negotiate and argue with LPC over individual buildings, carve-outs. They wanted to remove a lot of buildings that didn't get removed, actually. We kept probably 60 buildings in that they wanted to remove. And so it was really, really a team effort. I think we're really lucky that, I should have said this at the beginning, but the district that I have the real privilege and honor of representing is fairly big geographically. It covers West Soho, Hudson Square, the South Village, Greenwich Village, the West Village, Chelsea, Flatiron, Hell's Kitchen, a little bit of the Upper West Side, Columbus Circle, Times Square, the Theater District, the Garment District, Hudson Yards, the High Line, the Hudson River Park, Javits Center, Penn Station, Moynihan Station, the New Whitney Museum, and the Sullivan Thompson Historic District. And I say all of that because we're really lucky that in this little slice of heaven, this little slice of New York City, we have GVSHP. Yes. There are lots of neighborhoods across the city that are deserving of protection and landmark status, but they simply don't have the organization that is tireless and on their game every day and week of the year, protecting the integrity of our blocks and of our neighborhoods. And so I am grateful that I get to do this work every single day. This wasn't done because I did it on my own. It was a collective effort with Andrew and with the community board and with the block associations and with concerned citizens who have cared and fought for over a decade to make this happen. So tonight is a joyous occasion. We should celebrate and be happy. But as Andrew said, there are many, many more battles to fight, especially in these dark times that we have ahead. We should savor this moment a little bit because we all have to put on our marching shoes and continue to fight both locally and collectively moving forward. Thank you all very, very much. So, thank you. That was really wonderful.
There's a couple more people I want to acknowledge, and one other person that we're going to hear from who's really played a key role in making this and the prior South Village landmark designation happen. Corey mentioned this before, but we were really thrilled to realize that after this designation took place, that just since 2003, GVSHP has been able to help get 1,250 buildings landmarked in our neighborhood. That's more than 10 historic districts. That's several dozen buildings individually landmarked. We hope to keep the progress going with your help and support. Some of the people who are here tonight who really just gave so much of their time and effort to this. Susan Wittenberg, I don't know if Susan's still here. There she is. Susan has been so passionate about this and really just unrelenting. Deborah Clearman, Deborah, did I mention you before? Because Deborah has been great about this in so many ways. She's a really great activist and organizer, and she's involved with South Village Neighbors, which is a group which has been incredibly dedicated on this cause as well, so I really want to acknowledge them. There's two people I want to quickly mention who unfortunately have passed during the time that we've been working on this, who were really particularly wonderful supporters of this effort. I wish I could be here tonight to see this, but one is Lucy Cesari, who I know many of us know and love. Wow. It's rare that you can be both so lovable and so fierce and unrelenting. There was not a day that went by that she didn't call me up to harangue me about the South Village. What was I doing? How was I going to make it happen? When was it going to get done? And it was great to hear from her about it. And, there's few people who had the right to be as unrelenting as Lucy did, because whatever she was asking you to do, she did 10 times more. And she really was an amazing person and an inspiration. And I also want to mention Susie Rodolo, who, like Lucy, is in the pictures up here, who really was just such a wonderful person. She was an academic. She was a writer. She gave really generously of her time. She turned out for our press conferences. She did programs for us, lots of stuff to support the effort, and she's historically so linked to this neighborhood. She appears on the cover of that of the album with Bob Dylan walking down Jones Street, and so she really was great, and I miss both of them. I wish they could be here, and there's countless other people who gave so much to this effort, who unfortunately are no longer with us, but part of what we do is help remember their effort through a variety of things, our oral histories and a lot of other stuff. There's a few other things I want to say, but I want to get to Tobi Bergman, who's the just recently left chair of Community Board 2, who really just played such an important role in helping to make this happen, helping to make the prior South Village landmark designation happen. He's incredibly hardworking, super smart, so rooted in the neighborhood. And you always want Tobi on your side, because it's really tough when you're not on the same side as him, because he knows what he's doing and he knows how to get stuff done, and I really appreciate all of the work that he's done towards this. So
he doesn't like compliments, so he's going to be cautious.
So Tobi, please come up here and say a few words.
Thank you, everybody. When you watch these slides go by, it's just extraordinary that anybody could know this district and say that it's not worthy of landmark designation. When we talk about landmark designation, we shouldn't be talking about like recognizing something that's static, that represents a pure representation of one particular era. This is a dynamic neighborhood that has changed over the years, but that has retained and grown into something more and more extraordinary, and remains that. And so you look at this and you feel very gratified that we're in a much better position now to retain this than we were a year ago or a month ago. You also see I look at one particular image and I feel great sadness, which is the image of Tom Garage, which is a truly extraordinary building and had a marvelous work of art, an emblem on it that depicting a truck going through the Holland Tunnel. And that, if you want to see that now, you can go, I think, probably onto Mercer Street and Broome and look up at the building. It's at the top of the building, and you can see like just the top little curve of the emblem, because they were asked, at least once that demolition happened, they were asked to put it somewhere where it was visible. So that's where they put it. I know. That's what I said. That's what I said. In any case, I think that this is a story of the end of this story is a victory that took place by hook or by crook. The basis for this designation is the extraordinary neighborhood. The vehicle for this designation is the extraordinary work that so many of you did under Andrew's leadership, and it just wasn't going to succeed on its merits. It succeeded because it was an opportunity. People recognized the opportunity, and they made that opportunity work. I guess a couple of months ago, I went to a meeting at the Landmarks Commission with Corey Johnson, and at that point we were starting to feel some softness that, in fact, that there's an understanding on the part of the city that we were serious, that this St. John's project was not going to happen unless the district happened. But nevertheless, that meeting was, yes, well, in January we'll start a study, we'll consider it, we have to look again at the boundaries, things have changed since the last study. And Corey Johnson said, designation before the end of December. No, it takes, you have to understand there's a 3-month process of this, and there's a 2-month process of this, and designation before the end of December. That conversation went on for about 5 more minutes. It was, after 5 minutes, the conversation turned to the details of how it was going to happen before the end of December. So by hook or by crook, this happened, but it happened because it deserved to happen and because people made it happen. So thank you so much.
I'm just going to say again how important Tobi was to making this happen. He really was, and I really, really appreciate that. You need strong allies to make this sort of stuff happen. In closing, I just want to say 2 things. One is, I'm coming up on 15 years at GVSHP, and in the time that I've been there, thank you, I've been privileged to work on a lot of really, really great projects. The South Village has always had a particularly warm spot in my heart, and part of that is because of the people involved in it. It's really just such wonderful people who feel so strongly about this area. It's just so connected to kind of their soul, and it's great to be a part of helping to recognize that. And I also want to, in some ways, kind of end at the beginning and just share a reminiscence, which I've shared before and with a few of you tonight when you came in. The first discussions that I remember about Landmark in the South Village, one was in 2000 or 2001, actually even before I was at GVSHP, I was involved in a meeting with folks from the neighborhood talking about NYU and other stuff and problems with the area south of Washington Square and losing historic buildings. And I and a few other people at that meeting said, why are we not fighting for a landmark district? And there were some cynics at that meeting who said you could never get a landmark district there. It's never going to happen. And a lot of people felt differently. And in 2001, when GVSHP was looking for a new executive director, and I interviewed with them, one of the things that they asked me was, well, what are your priorities? What would you like to see happen? And I talked about the South Village as one of my dreams that I would like to see landmarked, and I was thrilled to hear back from them that was a priority and a dream for them as well. And I knew that this was the place for me to go, and I'm really glad that I was able to end up there, and that all of us have been able to work together to make this happen. It's not often you get to look back on 10 years of hard work and say we accomplished something, 3 historic districts, 625 buildings, and that we're in a lot better place than we were beforehand. So if I leave you with anything, it's I really just want to say your hard work, our hard work made this happen, and let's celebrate today, but let's also know that hard work is going to have to continue in the South Village and outside of the South Village to keep fighting for what we really want and what we believe in. So thank you very much, everybody, for helping to make this happen. We really appreciate it. And keep drinking and eating. We got a little bit before we got to clear out of here for the next movie. So enjoy.